gosh, that was a bit of a rush to get everyone in the hall, but welcome. If I'm looking very red in the face, you'll know why. It's nothing to do with me. But listen, welcome everybody to this is our 22nd Longford lecture. There are some people in the audience who've been here for all 22, and none of us look a year older. Isn't that marvellous? It is the effect of being at the Longford lecture. Makes you forever young. But thank you very much. My name is Peter Stamford. I'm the director of the Longford Trust, and I am here to welcome you to our lecture. The very first thing I want to do is welcome to our stage, I have to stay near the microphone, our 2024, there we are, struggling with my numbers there, our 2024 Longford lecturer, Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe. Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, a couple of other welcomes. When we put the tickets up for this lecture, it was at virtually exactly the same time as people were putting the tickets up for the Oasis lecture. And I think people got rather confused because ours seemed to go quicker than theirs. So if there's anyone in here who thinks they've come for Oasis, Hilary and I can do quite a good number, but probably not as good as those brothers. Indeed. Actually, someone's got their hand up there. Oh. No. But welcome. But it also meant a lot of people couldn't get tickets for this, so apologies to them. But I think many of you, I'm now going to look vaguely into a camera and say welcome to the live stream. We've got a live stream. Last year we had about 1,000 people on it, but I hope this year we'll have more. So welcome to everyone who's joined us this evening. Also, particular welcome to make to our sponsors this evening. As you know, we don't charge for tickets to the Longford Lecture because we believe very passionately that everyone should be able to come. And we do say to you all, if you can afford to make a donation in lieu of your tickets, please do. But no pressure at all. I might have a little more pressure later on, but no pressure at all. But our sponsors make it possible for us to stage this lecture. So our first sponsor, as I'm looking up at the board, I can see their logo there, is 23ES, which is a barrister's chamber. So thank you very much to them. Various of the members of the chamber are here, so do talk to them later on. And our second sponsor is the big construction and engineering company, Atkins-Realis, who've linked with us in our employability project. They were just doing a session with some of our scholars about employability, because the thing that we believe really passionately at the Longford Trust is it's not just about getting a degree, it's about a degree leading on to what everyone else thinks a degree leads on to, which is a degree-level job. And there are some obstacles that stand in the way of people coming out of prison or with criminal convictions, and Atkins-Realis are helping us deal with those ones. So thank you very much to them for their support as well. And we have one other thank you to say this evening, one other welcome actually, but I'm going to hand over to Hilary Inyamo-Marcus, who is one of the presenters on the award-winning National Prison Radio, which is broadcasting this lecture onto all 131 prisons in the country.
Yes,
so
yes.
Anyway, you're going to tell us that. But ladies and gentlemen, Hilary's going to welcome our listeners on National Prison Radio. Hilary.
Thank you. I've written notes, I hope you don't mind, just to make sure I stay on track. Otherwise, you hear my lecture and not Nazanin's. So apologies if I just run through this. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Peter, thank you for a very, very warm introduction, and kind at that. My name is Hilary Inyamo-Marcus, a radio presenter and broadcaster. I'm 39 years old, and I have lived experience of the UK justice system. I was further detained on 2 separate occasions by the Home Office whilst facing deportation to Nigeria, my country of birth, which I left to come to the UK at the tender age of 9. We are broadcasting tonight's lecture on National Prison Radio, a unique radio station that is transmitted to those in prisons in England and Wales. We have a listenership of about 80,000 people. So ladies and gentlemen, 80,000 people are potentially going to be hearing your laughters, your claps this evening, so make sure you give it a real gusto, okay? Thank you. Excellent. You've had good practice. We're an award-winning platform that produces great programs, and our slogan is, for prisoners, by prisoners. It is truly my exclusive honor and privilege to host tonight's lecture in this historic building, Church House, which is nestled just behind Westminster Abbey. We are sat in an amazing auditorium with an audience of over 650 guests. And can I say, you're all very, very good looking. Okay, it's not often I say that, and I mean that. All from various walks of life and professions. But suffice to say, it's packed to the rafters this evening. Above the ceiling of this auditorium, where tonight's lecture is being broadcasted from, are these beautiful words inscribed in gold, lending radiance to them that endure in the heat of conflict. As I read those words, it got me very excited to want to hear the journey of tonight's speaker, Nazanin. Her incredible story is one that made headlines across the world. She's just an ordinary mother and wife who was thrown into an extraordinary situation. Tonight, we're incredibly lucky to hear her tell her story. Peter, over to you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, first up this evening is going to be our Kevin Pakenham Prize, which was set up in 2021 in memory of our founding chairman, Kevin Pakenham. And I'm delighted that Kevin's wife, Ronke Phillips, is going to come and join me on stage to announce the winner. Ronke, you'll all know her from ITN News and ITV London. Ronke, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello, and thank you all for being here. And I've got notes as well, because I'm one person that always goes over my time. So I'll stick to the notes and hope I keep to my time. Otherwise, Peter will be behind me. And I wanted to start by saying, and probably don't need to tell you, that prisons policy is high on our national political agenda. And my husband, Kevin, believed passionately in getting the public engaged in the subject of prison reform as the best possible way to bring about change in the criminal justice system and bring a greater focus on rehabilitation. So in his memory, we established the Kevin Pakenham Prize to recognise a public figure who each year we judge to have done the most to push prison reform up the list of priorities for all. Now, it's sponsored by the Blavatnik Family Foundation, and each year our winner is given £5,000 to direct towards the prison reform cause they most admire. Past winners have included Jimmy McGovern, the wonderful John Snow, and the business leader James Timpson. Now, some of you may know, James is now Lord Timpson, because if you didn't know, he's got a new job. He's now our prisons minister, a very big challenge for him. And I'm delighted to especially delighted, I should say, that he's agreed to come tonight. He has a very busy schedule, and he's going to join us on stage. Would you come up, James? And he's going to award this year's prize. So, I'll just tell you about this year's prize. And the Kevin Pakenham Prize winner this year is a playwright and screenwriter whose first script for the National Theatre, 2012's This House, was nominated for an Olivier Award. A decade on, he's today hailed by critics as Britain's leading political playwright, and he now has 2 Oliviers, the second for the hugely popular Dear England, which told the tale of Gareth Southgate's efforts to revive the England football team. On TV, his 2022 Sherwood won 4 BAFTAs. But what drew us to James was Punch, his new play, which premiered at the Nottingham Playhouse in May to rave reviews. I'm looking that way because I know my stepdaughter's somewhere over there and helped with this play, as did her partner, Phillida. And it comes to the Young Vic next March. It's James's adaptation of a memoir written by former Longford scholar and Longford Trust team member Jacob Dunn, which follows his journey from conviction for manslaughter through to engaging in the restorative justice process with the parents of his victim. It brings the case for rehabilitation and second chances to an audience that conventional prisons reform organisations cannot reach, and has already caused many to think again. Now, James very much wanted to be here tonight to receive this award in person, from the other James, obviously, but he's currently tied up in rehearsals for a Broadway musical. He has, although, sent us a message.
Hi everyone, I'm James Graham and I'm just leaving a short message to say firstly how profoundly gutted I am not to be with you all this evening. I'm stuck in New York opening a show here, but I would much rather be with you all on this special evening. And that's because I guess like every recipient ever of the Kevin Pakenham Award, I am simultaneously aggressively unworthy of such an honour, whilst also being really significantly touched to receive it. So thank you. It's been a huge honour and privilege to be working with and meeting scholars and mentors and fellows from the Longford Trust this year while I adapted a play, Punch, for the Nottingham Playhouse, based on Jacob Dunn's memoirs, who I believe is there, accepting on my behalf. Thank you, Jacob. Nice to see you remotely. And that project and the work I also did with Sherwood and BBC One this year has affected me deeply in terms of these questions and issues around justice and prison reform. And so I wanted to reaffirm and extend my commitment to using art and drama to popularise and let an audience gain access to these questions and issues. So thank you. I'm also aware it comes with a prize fund, and given the themes of Punch, which is all around forgiveness and finding new ways to process your anger and your grief within the criminal justice system, I could think of no other worthy recipient than the Forgiveness Project, who I know that Jacob and other people in the story of Punch worked with on their grief in this story and meant a huge amount to them in terms of processing what happened. I think their work is remarkable. So I would really love to donate that prize money to the Forgiveness Project and look forward to working with them and with you guys on moving forward on new ways to find drama, art and entertainment to get access to these stories. So thank you, it means a lot, and enjoy your night. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Jacob to the stage. Jacob wrote the book. And just before you hand it over, I'll just tell the audience that this wonderful award was designed by Paul Grady, who's another one of our Longford scholars. But James, do the honours, please.
Can I just say a couple of words? First of all, to all the ladies and gents in prison, bang on your doors. And there's hope at the end of the tunnel. I remember feeling lost, like no one would ever forgive me, like there was no chance that I'd ever educate myself, that there was no chance that I'd ever be able to amount to anything. But if you ask for help and you accept it, you'll continue to move towards the best version of yourself, and that we are all more than the worst choice we've ever made. I couldn't think of a better charity for the money to be donated to than the Forgiveness Project. They've helped me as much as the Longford Trust has helped me in my own personal journey. And thank you all. The other thing about this play is it's not about me. Okay, I might be the lead protagonist or person in the story, but the reason that this has been a success is because it's been a collaborative process. It's because nobody's egos get in the way, that everybody is focused on how we tell the best story possible, how we engage the public in talking about these issues around criminal justice and reform. And thank you all for your continued work. I know I'm preaching to the converted, but we've got to I've been banging my head on the wall, as many of us have for the last 10 years, because we all know the evidence suggests what needs to be done and what works in terms of assistance and what works in terms of supporting victims. But for some reason, we don't follow the evidence. But this is an opportunity where the evidence, what we need is a story and stories to tell that can engage the public to believe in and be led by what the evidence suggests. And I hope that this story and Punch next year at the Young Vic, you'll be able to engage and follow the story and share and be part of the momentum as we all strive towards, you know, a better place. So thank you so much.
I say thank you to Jacob, but I'd also like to say thank you to you, James, for coming tonight. It means an awful lot to me. I know it means a lot to the people here that you're here, and I just hope you'll say a few words for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here this evening and for being in a room amongst friends. And even though I may have a different job, I still feel I'm with you on this one. So let me just I wouldn't mind just talking about a few things. That award you've got, Jacob, is a really special award. And I know on behalf of James and everyone else, there's a lot more to be said about the whole subject of forgiveness and restorative justice. And when the play comes to the Young Vic in March, I know all my ministerial team we're going to have a night out, if we're allowed a night out, because we're all really, really keen to see it. And I just think it will be a really important way of communicating about forgiveness and second chances in a way that a lot of us have tried, but hopefully this will be another tool for other people to listen to what we've been saying and what we know works. And also, I might just say to Peter and your colleagues at the Longford Trust, what a wonderful job you do. Education is so important. And I've been fortunate to meet many of your scholars over the years. And in fact, we met, Jacob, didn't we, a few weeks ago. You're a scholar as well. And I just think it gives them not just a great career when they leave, but also when they're in prison, it gives them a great opportunity to be proud for what they can achieve, because as a lot of us have been in prisons, we know there are so many talented, bright, capable people there, but they just need someone to give them that chance, and you're giving them that chance. And when I was last here picking up the award, I had my sort of employment hat on. Now I have a different hat on, and I wear different clothes because I can't wear my crazy jackets anymore. I have to wear the boring suits. But what I would like to do in the time I've got to do this job is to take the opportunity that I've been given to use, as you quite rightly say, something that often is not used very much in this world, which is called evidence, and use the evidence to make the changes that we know will work to help lots of people turn their lives around. I really passionately believe in second chances, and I've been fortunate to work with hundreds of people in my career who have lived experience of prison. And the reason why I like working with them wasn't because I wanted to give them a second chance, but that was a nice byproduct. The reason why I liked it, because they were really good, they were really talented, and they worked really hard and were ambitious. So one of the things that I would like you to do over the coming months and maybe years, if they give me a long enough run at this, is to judge me on how I managed to change things. But I will be changing things on the evidence. So I will be hopefully giving you evidence that I've been using the evidence to change the way this works, so that when I go to prisons and I meet people out on probation and I see the talent and the ambition that they have, I want them to have the opportunity to turn their lives around. Because that, to me, is why I've been given this job, and I need to make the most of the opportunity. And I know how much I need your support as well. So thank you very much for having me this evening, and thank you for all you do in helping people fulfill their potential. Thank you.
Thank you. James was going to say at the end he's got ministerial business to go and do, but he slipped off discreetly, so I will say that for you. Thank you for all that, ladies and gentlemen. The other bit before we listen to Nazanin is our annual Longford Prize, which, like the lecture, is 23 years old this year. And as has been our tradition these past 23 years, we ask our Longford lecturer to present the prize to our winners. So, Nazanin, would you come and join me at the lectern? This is a prize that also comes with a cheque for £5,000. And each year our judges, chaired by the broadcaster and former prison governor John Podmore, and including reps of partner organisations, Prison Reform Trust and New Bridge, both of whom have stands in the room opposite. Go and talk to them there at the end. And one of our former scholars is on the jury as well. Choose the winners from nominations submitted. So I'm going to read out the judges' citation for our 2024 winners, and I'm going to ask them, led by their founder, Donna Moody, to come up and join me and Nazanin on stage as I read out the citation. So please come and join me. And so our winners this year are Ungrip, which is the... Oh. Hey, I didn't do very well with reading out the citation then, did I? But your claps came very quickly. So UNGRIP is the United Group for Reform of IPP, and it's a vital service and a vital lifeline, this is what the judges wrote, for those still serving IPP, which stands for Imprisonment for Public Protection sentences, as well as a highly effective grassroots campaigning organisation run on a small budget. So the judges continue. Though abolished 12 years ago, IPPs keep thousands of men and women sentenced before these IPP sentences were axed in 2012, in prison without a release date and without hope, many years beyond their original IPP minimum tariff. Others struggle to restart their lives in the community while still under IPP licenses, where recall to prison happens often. UNGRIP's tireless support means that they and their families are neither alone or forgotten, while its well-targeted demand that this scar on our criminal justice system be properly addressed daily gathers momentum. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me in applauding UNGRIP? UNGRIP will be in the Bishop Partridge room afterwards. Please go and talk to them about the work they do, and please support it. It is an incredibly important cause. Thank you very, very much. Okay. So now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honour to introduce our 2024 Longford lecturer, Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe. On April 3rd, 2016, at the end of a trip home to see her parents in Iran, Nazanin was detained against the backdrop of a long-running dispute between Iran and the UK. Nearly 6 years later, on the 17th of March 2022, after 3 hunger strikes and an international campaign led by her husband Richard, who is sitting here, she was finally allowed to return to him and their daughter Gabriella, who is here with us in the front row as well. It's a huge pleasure for me to introduce Nazanin and her Longford lecture, The Legacy of Evin, good, I got it right, Evin Prison, Reflections on What I Learned About Prison in Iran. Ladies and gentlemen, Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe.
Good evening, everyone. It is an honor to be standing here tonight, which frankly feels so unreal. Never in a million years, when I was despairing in prison, I dared to think seeing this day. But here I am. Sure. Thank you. Honored to be invited by the Longford Trust, who does a lot to provide second chances to prisoners to bring them back to life once free. Throughout one of my therapy sessions, my therapist told me that prison and prison stories are fascinating to people, but no one wishes to be in prison for one day. I, however, have spent nearly 1,800 days in the notorious Evin prison in Iran on trumped-up charges that I always denied. On April 3rd, 2016, when I was traveling back from Iran with my then 22-month-old baby to London, after spending the Persian New Year with my family in Tehran, I was abducted at the airport, taken to some unknown places for one night, and then flown to a different city in the southeast part of Iran called Kerman, where I disappeared from the face of the earth for a couple of weeks without anyone knowing where exactly I was, except I was alive. There is very little I know about those early days, as I never had the guts to ask my family how they felt when I went missing. My memory of those early days is nothing but a blur. For a very long time, I was carrying all those horrific, detailed memories, and I thought I was going mad. And that is how my 6-year ordeal began. Within 5 months, I was interrogated, put on a sham trial which took less than 2 hours, convicted and sentenced to 5 years in prison. I spent the first 45 days of my incarceration in solitary confinement in Kerman prison. The cell had tall walls and cold floor. There was no bed but one thin blanket. I didn't shower for days, as I was not allowed to leave the cell. The walls were towering, and the constant light was blinding. I was terrified, lost, and emotionally traumatized. No one ever explained to me why I was taken to that place. I didn't eat proper food for weeks and survived on cheese and bread. I missed my baby and could not believe they have separated us from each other. I was mainly on my own, but sometimes they would bring people from outside who were transient. There was very little conversation between us, as they were mainly drowsy and intoxicated, incapable of making any form of communication. Before I was transferred to Tehran, I was briefly let out the cell into the general ward, where the majority of inmates were on death row, on drug-related charges, either smuggling or consuming. We did not have anything in common except lacking freedom. They were kind to me, especially when they found out that I had a young child, and I had so much sympathy for them. They were the obvious victims of social injustice. In a country soaring with natural wealth, they were some of the poorest citizens to whom life had been unkind. They had turned into trading drugs in order to make ends meet, which was a recipe to make them the returning prisoners. There I was, one of the 420 inmates in the sea of prisoners swimming in those narrow corridors of prison. There were young and underaged girls, pregnant women, mothers, infants, babies, daughters, and elderly women. And then there was me, a lost mother separated from her child, not knowing exactly what was going to happen in the future. At least there, unlike the solitary confinement, I was surrounded by people. There was life and there was argument. I was able to use the phone, but only allowed to call my family. By that I mean my parents and not my husband. I could shower every day, which was a blessing, but the disproportionate number of showers for inmates, an equivalent of 3 to 120 prisoners, meant you had to queue to use the shower, and that could not last more than 5 minutes. Otherwise, they would kick the door open and pull you out. I cared less about my shirt and trousers disappearing from the washing line than my one and only precious thing that I had, and that was my wedding ring. Prison was overcrowded. The number of prisoners living there were almost 3 times more than its actual capacity. Many women had been there before, pardoned, released, reoffended, and sent back to prison, and that looked so normal to them. After over 2 months there, I was relocated to the security ward of the Revolutionary Guard within Evin prison, where I spent the following 7 months in solitary confinement under tight security conditions. On Christmas Day of 2016, they moved me to the one and only female political prison in Evin, in Iran, to serve the rest of my sentence. These 2 prisons had many things in common, from fights to food ration and complex friendship. Yet they differed from each other in one specific way. The majority of women in Kerman prison had given up. They had very little to hold on to or to look forward to. Many of them had their husbands in prison at the same time, and their children taken into the custody of their relatives or the government. Many of them knew that they would end up in prison, but they had no other choice to change that. In Evin, however, inmates had come up with some ways to bring more meaning to their lives. For them, prison life was something much more significant than simply walls, bars, locks and clang of gates. They had found threads to connect them to their life outside the walls. They had found hope. The solidarity amongst women in Evin prison was bigger and stronger than anything I have ever witnessed in my life. Women, regardless of their religion, political views, or social class, would come together for one specific reason: to defy oppression, fighting for their rights, and standing up against the authoritarian regime that had unjustly incarcerated them. One of our main challenges in prison was time. We were relentlessly struggling to find ways to improve the quality of the time we spent in prison. The authorities were exceptionally reluctant to provide us with options, but we found ways to overcome that. I had to spend time with women in Evin prison who had 10 or more years of sentence, served graciously and with dignity. They were strong pillars in the ward, helping others, including myself, to go through those hard times of desperation. By sticking together, we each increased our chances of surviving. We read together, we entertained each other, we cooked together, ate together, and we fought together. We were stronger together, and that helped us tremendously to find ways to pass the time. The unwavering tenacity of these women kept all of us battling the obvious discriminatory rules between male and female wards. Prison, as a totalitarian, misogynistic state of its own, used every chance to discipline us on every level. We as women had less access to phone calls, health treatments, and even goods on the shelf in our tiny shop on site. We could each use the phone for 10 minutes per head three times a week. They knew very well that in a traditional society like Iran, where women are largely in charge of home, reducing family contact would be the most painful, yet efficient form of punishment, which came at little cost to them. They were very reluctant to give us our basic rights, but we were determined to fight our rights back. We fought for everything, from convincing them to give us a weekly mother and baby visit to raising money to buy ourselves an oven so that we could bake our own bread, which was not drugged with sedatives. Our power against them sometimes surprised ourselves as much as them. While inmates in Kerman prison disproportionately had low literacy level, disrupted family and educational histories, the political ward in Evin prison consisted predominantly of educated, professional, and politically active women who had certain knowledge, skills, and expertise that gave them a lot more power. And that paradoxically also made them more vulnerable, as the authorities did not like to be challenged by some authoritative and confident women who knew about their rights more than them. The government's main use of prison was punishment, but there was also rehabilitation. They underestimated the individual agency and power of each prisoner. We had access to books, and knowledge was the power. We read about different topics, including history, politics, philosophy, and feminism. I discovered a lot more about punishment by reading Foucault's Discipline and Punishment while in prison, or Arendt's On Revolution. We had a long waiting list for Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, which ironically came to prison through the post. We also found Prison Break on a state TV, which we all agreed was an innocent mistake. It was extremely popular amongst everyone, and we were looking for routes in on-site clinic in prison afterwards. Some women were arbitrarily detained through mass street arrest or group social punishment schemes, and often pardoned as a result of prison overcrowding. Mass pardons would happen a couple of times a year in order to reduce the number of prisoners. Sometimes later, people would return to prison, this time for standing up for their rights. I believe a growing prison population is an indication of the failure by the government. It is a lazy policy to lock people up when you don't know what to do with them, or for politicians to equate security with more imprisonment. It was followed by a lazy politics of mass arrests, followed by a mass release. The prison services knew that prison not only did not have a deterrence or rehabilitating effect, but also a counterproductive one. The government authorities avoided seeing that. Prison in all places is used to control those who harm society. However, states like Iran also use prison as a form of punishment to control the whole of society and its criticisms. The soaring increase in political prisoners in Iran over the past 2 decades is an indication of weakness of a state which is willing to inflict substantial pain on individuals and communities to discourage dissent. The life of a prisoner like me in Iran was hugely uncertain. As a hostage, whether I had good or bad behavior had almost no impact on my release. To them, I was simply an object with a constantly changing value. The open-endedness of the imprisonment was all-consuming, not knowing when your ordeal was going to end. No one took the responsibility for explaining what was happening and why. I was continually kept in the dark, not knowing what would happen next. I had endless, unfulfilling dreams about freedom, that all my friends got released and my name wasn't on the list, or I couldn't find my shoes to leave prison, or even coming back to London but not being able to find my hope, to find my home. I have dreamt and thought about freedom for years. That sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I would lose the line between imagination and reality. Even in my dreams, there was no escape from the uncertainty of when this would end. Just before finishing my initial 5-year sentence, they conveniently opened a new case against me and sentenced me to more years in prison. For months, I lived under the terror of being sent back to prison, which luckily didn't happen. But the ambiguity was always there. The uncertainty of my imprisonment could sometimes push me to the brink, something I sincerely believe that the IPP prisoners in Britain resonate with very well. And it didn't leave me alone in freedom either. For months, whilst free, I would still wake up in the middle of the night, pondering where I was, with the news of every one of my former inmates being released. My nightmares would come back. Yet again, they were being released, but I was being left behind. But we all find rays of hope at times of darkness and despair. And for me, that was humanity. For a prisoner, nothing is worse than feeling forgotten. There were times that I despaired, thinking no one knew where I was or what I felt, until the day that I realized that had it not been for the love, prayers, and care of the people, I wouldn't have been home by then. I always believed that our families who were fighting for us outside suffered more than we did. They were the ones who had to deal with our absence, the ambiguity of where we were and under what condition. A couple of months after I came home, I went to see the Freedom exhibition curated by Ai Weiwei for the Kessler Trust, who had designed 15 cells based on the size of a typical cell in a UK prison, each containing a collection of artwork done by prisoners across the UK. Whilst there, a volunteer came forward and told me that he had watched me being released, getting on the plane and coming home, whilst he was still in prison himself. He was then out on probation. Once he showed me his ankle tag, all of a sudden we had so much in common. We talked about our children and the uncertainties and prison scars, but also hopes for a second chance at life. It felt bizarrely familiar. He then called his mates, and we all took a group photo in freedom. If he's still listening to me at this moment, I hope he's happy and he's back with his children. On the 17th of March 2022, I came home to London after 6 long years of separation. The euphoric moments of freedom that I had spent years thinking about all of a sudden felt unfulfilling. There was something missing. I had left many people behind bars in Iran in prison, and that made me rethink freedom. I still find it therapeutic and redemptive to talk about them and tell their stories, to shine a light on their ordeal, and for them to know that they are not alone. All those women in Iran who have been standing up for their rights and for holding on to human dignity in the face of an oppressive system, their pain and suffering should not pass unnoticed. The road to freedom was long and bendy, with so many dead ends along the way. We finally made it, but we couldn't have achieved freedom on our own. So many people carried us along the way to whom we will feel forever indebted. And it will only make it fair for those who need our help that we support them and be their voice. We will not stop fighting until they are free and safe. No one ever promised us that life would be easy, especially at times which we are witnessing at the moment. As I often reminisce about life post-prison, this bit is a bit grim, I'm sorry, but this is a reality, that we are born with pain, and we will carry this pain with us throughout our journey. Might be a bit bleak, but it's the truth. I was born in the middle of a revolution and grew up in a wartime between Iran and Iraq. I felt I had a unique experience to have witnessed war, which allowed me to look at life differently, considering what is happening around the world right now at the moment in Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, and Lebanon. That doesn't seem such a novel experience anymore. In a world of conflict, holding on to our humanity matters. In dark storms, we should cherish the lighthouse. Coming home, however, wasn't easy. Being away for a long time made re-engaging with the society much more complicated than I expected. I came back feeling prison had wasted my life. I couldn't change what was past. I had to come to terms with that. They often talk about the physical and mental implications post-prison, but infrequently talk about the economic hardship imposed on families through imprisonment. Prisons are expensive to run, but in Iran, the government has all these ways to throw the cost of imprisonment on families, from paying for food to loo papers, plates, and mugs. The situation in Iran gets a lot worse when you come out of prison, with old jobs long gone and new ones much harder to find for ex-prisoners, former homes and savings all spent. No doubt that is the same in the UK. Life is on hold while you're on the inside. You realize how much it has withered only when you come out. It is hard to nurture it again. Building more prisons is not going to solve the problem of overcrowding, but investing on ways to help prisoners integrate is. Increasing resources for prisoners, improving healthcare services, providing access to education and employability skills will advance the quality of life in prison, but also paves the way for life after. At the end, I would like to remind those in charge of prison and prison reforms that the governments have a duty of care for prisoners as its citizens. They have an obligation to provide them with a path back to the right way. A cycle of punishment benefits no one. No one in prison should ever feel that the government has given up on them. For those of you who are listening from inside prison, as someone who has been in your shoes once in the past, it is devastating to be away from your family, friends, or home. But I want you to know that it will eventually end. Hold on to the thread and don't despair. There is life there outside prison waiting for you. However hard sometimes, it is good to have a second chance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nazanin. I'm just going to give you, I think that one's working too. Thank you. That was a very powerful and very personal lecture. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I was particularly struck by the link with the people who are listening to us via Prison Radio. And there are people in this audience who know about prison too. And that solidarity across borders and humanity and hope. So thank you so much for that. Now is the time for a chance for you in the audience to ask questions, to share thoughts. We last year introduced using Slido technology just so we could use our time very productively. And you'll see up on this screen behind me, there is a QR code. Focus your camera on it, and you can send your question, which by magic will end up on this screen in front of me. I'm sure it isn't magic; it's technology. But we have also, I mean, clearly our listeners this evening in prison couldn't get the questions to us that quickly, because of course prisoners aren't allowed internet access at all. And but some of them have submitted through National Prison Radio some questions of their own in advance, knowing that we're going to be listening to you. So I'm going to start with a couple of those, which will give you all chance to, sorry, I know I'm popping my P's, which you're told not to, but apologies for that. Some which they have submitted already. So I will start with one of those. This is from L in HMP Low Newton. What gave you hope?
Oh, this is a question I often get asked. I was born in a religious family in Iran, traditionally a religious family, and it was my faith. I had to find something to hold on to when I was locked up in the solitary. I am claustrophobic, and it was very hard to be in a cell for a long time. Having said that, I must admit that I have somehow parked the idea of my faith when I came out of prison, or actually when it took so long to come out. I haven't quite given up. There is hope that I might go back to it, but I'm questioning a lot of the stuff in my head that, why this happened and why did it take so long. But it was my faith.
Brilliant. Sorry, I was, yeah. Very stupidly, I pressed the wrong button on the iPad. Sorry, everyone. So could someone up there please come down and help me make the iPad work again? I'm so sorry. Oh, it's a difficult age, isn't it? So we're going to carry on with a couple more questions that have been submitted, and hopefully one of those incredible technical people up there who know how this works is going to come and sort this out for me. This is a question from someone in Wayland Prison. How do you think being in prison has changed you as a person?
It has made me a lot more sensitive about people's pain and suffering. And I think I was a very, very normal person before I went to prison. Like an ordinary person who, worried about jobs and, changing house, like normal stuff, booking holiday. Not that I don't do them now. I feel more about whatever else which is happening around the world and the life of people, and specifically about freedom and how we have to appreciate life on a single day, every day, because there is no tomorrow, because we don't have tomorrow. I often say that when I was arrested, that big picture of not knowing what exactly is going to happen didn't exist in my head. But what I worried about was the Peppa Pig ticket that I had for my baby. And I was like, what's going to happen to that? I mean, we have got a ticket. Obviously, surely I have to go back to take my child to Peppa Pig land. Not knowing the horrific 6 years coming. But I was so wrapped up in my day-to-day life. But also that could have been like a way to try to distract myself about this whole big problem that I was stuck in. But that is all to say that it has made me worry less about little things in life and to be more thoughtful about people's suffering.
Thank you. The good news is it's working again. All of these are anonymous, but this question is from someone in the audience. Do you think you can ever forgive?
I have to. I have no other choice. I will never forget, but I had to forgive. I had to forgive the moment I got on the plane and I left Iran. Just because the anger was so strong and it was so big that I was not ready to let it take over my entire life. I had to give it to them to deal with it. I had done my share of dealing with all that kind of agony and stress and anxiety and feeling guilty. I mean, after a long time, I felt guilty that I have left my child and I'm not a good mother. Not that it was my fault that I was stuck, but, that kind of the feeling of like motherhood. But I had to park that idea just because I was not going to let that overshadow my life, for the years to come. But I don't think I will ever forget.
This is another question from our audience this evening. How did this affect your mental health?
Well, hugely. I think there is a lot about mental health and how prison affects mental health. I take therapy, and I think we all need to if we go through a trauma like this. For me, that side of the motherhood side and the side of, that the government, frankly, the governments that can allow a mother and a baby to be separated from each other for such a long time was unfathomable. I could never deal with that. I mean, even to date, I don't look at my daughter's pictures from the age of 22 months old to the age of 8. I just can't look at them because I don't want to be reminded of the things that I have lost, and that has got a huge scar. But also I struggled with, for a very long time, I have lived with a very close group of people. So going back on the tube and meeting new people, and that was horrific. I mean, I didn't leave. I still try to kind of, I'm not isolating myself, but I would prefer not leaving the house just because I can't face going into the tube. And it's not, everything is happening in my head. It's not about I don't feel safe. It's about, it's a trust issue. It's an anxiety. It's PTSD. And and I think prison, I'm not expecting, things happening very quickly, post-freedom. But I think I underestimated how traumatic coming home and getting back, engaging back with the society would be. I underestimated that.
Thank you. Was there, this is again from someone in the audience, was there ever a time that you actually gave up hope of ever being released and reunited with your family?
Yes, many times. And I often don't go to the details when my daughter is sitting in the audience, just because, but just to say that, yes, there were times that I felt I was very, very close to losing it. And it's one of the main functions of solitary in particular is to disconnect you from the outside world and because you live in a bubble and you think that, nobody knows where you are, nobody cares about you, and that's the whole function of solitary, to break you and to take your identity away from you. And that was the hardest time because I didn't know if anyone knew, if anyone cared about me, if anyone knew where I was. And, nobody knew where I was for quite some time, but I found it very hard, a couple of times specifically, that I felt life is not really worth living. Luckily, I was then surrounded by people, I had the love of my family, and I think I was lucky. Sorry, I can't explain more than this.
No. Sorry, I'm slightly losing thread because this machine is now moving the questions I was about to read away from me, and I'm not quite sure what to do. So sorry to be the incompetent person sitting here when you are so competent. And I'm going to go back to my list of pre-prepared questions, which is safer. Not pre-prepared, but sent in already. So it really is a difficult age, isn't it? What did you learn in prison that might help other people serving a sentence? And that's from Shannon, who is in HMP style.
When I was in, this is just my experience of someone who has lived in a prison outside the UK, so I don't know whether that would resonate with this person. But we had, in that prison, we had people from the Christian minority, we had people who were from the Mujahideen, the MKO, people who were supporting, the Mujahideen, people who were Sufis, we had people who were the royalists, we had people from all different, we had Baha'is, we had people from all different parts of society, we had Marxists. And when something dramatic happened in prison that we needed to come up with a decision, we all forgot about any political affiliation we had, and we all came together for one specific thing, and that was solving that issue. And I found that the solidarity I found the most powerful and the most amazing, which would be nice if we could follow that in a world, I'm sure it's very difficult because we were like only 42 and, it was a small group. But to think about a world that's, when we were eating together, like group lunches, we were all equal, regardless of what we had outside prison, whether we were like a doctor, we had like a mansion, how much money we had, what professional kind of level we were, it almost didn't matter because we had all come to a ground zero. We all had the same ration per month, we all had the same number of minutes per week to talk on the phone, we all had the same number of visits, no one had anything extra. And that made us all equal at the same time without even worrying about the class of society, the wealth, the social status, and that was just remarkable. I think if we could imagine a world that we are all equal, regardless of what we have, and I understand that a group of 42 people is much easier to manage than a nation, but it was just beautiful to see that the solidarity will mobilize the people into better decision making, and that was great.
Thank you for that. A final question, I'm going to put that to one side. A final question, I've read it and memorized it. Someone has asked, obviously James Stinson has left now, and you were having a chat with him before we came on stage. If you had one piece of advice to give to the prison minister, who is so committed, as we can see, to making prisons better, what would you like him to do?
I think he kind of mentioned, I think the most important thing is to remember that prisoners are also citizens. They all have the right to live. For whatever reason, they were stuck in prison. But there is always hope that if they're given a second chance. So just to, in my opinion, I was in a prison that nobody cared about. Specifically, they didn't care about our gender because we were women, so we were like the second class, members of the second class citizen. But to think about, for whatever reason, we were stuck in prison, but we were still human beings, and to be respected as a person with the specific rights to live. So I think that would be, I think he kind of mentioned in his words as well, that every person has got the right to live and the right to be given a chance to live again.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Oh. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We talked about second chances there, and I'm just going to take a couple of minutes now, if you can bear with me. And now I haven't got a piece of technology in my hand. I might be able to do it properly. So if I'm going to trip over the chair. We're just going to talk for a moment about our Longford Scholarship, so you've got an idea of what we do. I'm going to come out, actually stand over in this bit. So I'm not doing well on choreography this evening. And I'm going to ask Rish, Sean, and Victoria to come up, and they're going to help me tell you just very briefly about our Longford Scholarship Programme and how it works. So Sean is here, Rish is here, and Victoria's here. Come on up on stage. Give them a warm welcome. Okay, I'm going to start with you, Sean. Sean, you've just graduated. You're one of our Longford scholars who's just graduated. Tell us what you graduated in and where you were doing it.
Yeah, so I graduated in criminology and I studied at John Moores University.
And how did you oh, right, there we go. And how did you find it? Tell us about the studies and tell us about how the Longford Trust were able to help you.
So it was a bit of a mixed bag, really, because when I came out of prison, I started the degree, we went into lockdown. So it was like half and half teaching. I wasn't there all the time. I had an 18-month-old son as well. So the Longford Trust really helped me with, money side of things. I was able to put my son into nursery whilst I was going to university, while I was studying. So that was a massive, massive help for me. And then knowing that somebody was there, so whilst in prison when I was applying for university, the help that I got from the Longford Trust was amazing. It gave me confidence, made me feel like I'd be able to do it. It had been such a long time since I'd been to school or had done anything like that. So it was, they gave me the confidence and made me believe in myself.
That's brilliant. And you're doing brilliantly. And just tell us what you're doing now, where this journey has gone to now.
Yeah, okay. So without going into details, I was, before my prison sentence, getting help for my gambling addiction through the Beacon Council and Trust. So I actually had to go and find them myself. It wasn't really known out there. I had to search. I was just tried to be put on, antidepressants and told I had anxiety and things like that. So I went out and got the help myself, and I found Beacon Council and Trust, and thank God I did. I'd say they saved my life. I got help, therapy through them, and then when I came out of prison, they got back in touch with me, and they asked if I wanted to go and join them on a lived experience basis while I was in university, and now they can't get rid of me because I'm full-time employed there now. I'm a brief intervention and education lead. So we go around, we go into prisons, we try and teach, prison staff about gambling and how it works with the brain. And yeah, so, I'm a little bit of a success story, so.
So much more than a little success story, the idea of using your experience to help others. Sian will be in the Bishop Partridge Hall. I keep pointing at that door because it's straight through there with her colleagues from the Beacon Trust, and we'll talk to you more about that if you want to when you go through there. I'm going to pivot round now, effortlessly, to Rish. Rish, tell us where you're up to with your degree at the moment.
So, thank you, Peter. I'm in the final year of a integrated mathematics master's at King's College London.
That's hard. What does that mean? Just tell me what it means. What is integrated maths?
So it's just a 4-year program where I'm doing the bachelor's and master's across the single program, and then I'll be graduating in summer next year.
Okay, and let me just borrow this because I've got a loud voice, but not that loud. So what do you hope to do when you graduate? What are your career plans going forward? I'm going to get the other microphone. You answer on that.
Sure, absolutely. So with the support of the Longford Trust, I've had a lot of opportunities to do a lot of work in researching in health tech, and so a lot of what I'm doing right now is focused on building products to help families with dementia patients, and that's probably what I'm going to be doing for the foreseeable.
Wow, That's pretty impressive. And given how forgetful I've been all evening, thank God. And Victoria here was your mentor, but just tell me what difference sorry, Victoria,
Definitely still
is your mentor. So tell me what mentoring, what that brought for you.
Yeah, okay, so everything I'm about to say is not indicative of a typical mentor-mentee relationship because I am fortunate enough to have the best mentor.
Aww.
Victoria will often say 5 to 15 words that will change my life, and then I'll come back 2 to 3 weeks later and have a complete new perspective on everything I'm doing. When you spend a long amount of time observing the world, thinking about everything you could do and everything you could have done, it gives you a lot of energy to try and run out and do everything as soon as you get released. And Victoria has really been instrumental in directing that ambition to run out and do everything. And yeah, as we said, definitely still is my mentor.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, Victoria, very high praise. I'm not going to ask you more about that, but just tell us about being a mentor and what it's like working with Rish.
Well, the first thing I would say is that you come across somebody who has already made a bad choice or two in their lives, but they have made the decision to do something about it. And if you can help them make the next decisions and guide them, it can be extremely rewarding. It's a relationship that takes you outside of the normal boundaries of your life, out of your normal work, family, relationships, to encounter something that can be somebody else in a very different world. And it can be both challenging, and we've had some challenges, and it can be very stimulating. If you can make the connection and you can actually see some progress, and I'm lucky to have somebody who listens and seems to have absorbed some of what I hopefully impart, there's just a sense of, I don't know, it's a good feeling, and it makes, and you turn into friends, and we have a good time. True?
Yes, we do.
Excellent. And would you, we're always looking for Longford Trust mentors to work with us, because would you recommend it, Victoria, as something to do?
I would absolutely recommend it. Now, first of all, what we do is we try and match scholars with mentors. So in terms of their particular interests, or the nature of who they are, we do try and match people up. Sometimes we're not successful at that, and changes have to be made. But generally, I'd say our success rate has been pretty good, and it's really worth it. We meet once a month, approximately. We have a long WhatsApp and messaging relationships. And when there are issues, there's a lot of contact. We've just had a big issue of negotiating with Rish's university. And there is a sense of satisfaction by the Longford Trust, not just me, with when we make grounds and we actually achieve something on behalf of one of our scholars when it's against the forces that be. So there's a lot of support that comes from the Longford team to mentors, so you're not on your own, and I think it's really worth considering doing. Please do.
Perfect. Thank you, Victoria. So, if anyone out there is interested in being a mentor, come and talk to us. Our table will be outside the reception room. Talk to my colleague Veena, who runs our mentoring program. We'd love to hear from you. Ladies and gentlemen, will you join me in saying a big, big thank you to these three wonderful people. Poor Nazanin just said to me, are we done? We're almost done, I promise. You can go if you want. It's all right. Wish I could. No. We've got two things just very quickly. First of all, sorry, this sounds very rude now about the next thing. I didn't mean it to be. I'm very happy about the next thing, just to be clear, to avoid a doubt. I'm going to ask our chairman, Tom Pakenham, to come up and say a few words about the Trust and to engage you, hopefully, in working with us going forward. So give Tom a very warm welcome in case it didn't seem like one.
I'll be as quick as I can. Good evening, everybody. My name is Tom Pakenham, and as the chair of the trustees, it's my job to talk about money. But before we get to that, Nazanin, that was a beautiful and brilliant and moving speech. I'm sure I speak for everybody here when listening to you, particularly when you were answering those questions. I was struck by your humanity and your bravery and your forgiveness, and it really means an awful lot, I'm sure, to everyone in the room. And I'm sure you bring every inspiration to everyone listening as well, and to all the people who spend their time and effort working in the justice system and who are trying to improve it. You and the ordeal that you went through and that your family went through reminds us all of the importance of a justice system that works. So thank you so much for speaking this evening. I'm here to tell you now where our funds come from and where they go. But most importantly of all, I'm here to thank each and every supporter, from the very smallest to the very largest, from the sponsors of tonight's lectures to those returning donors who support us year after year. Without you, this trust would not have the impact that it does. We would not be able to do what we do, and we would not have the impact. This is your impact. But let me first bring you up to date on our financial situation. In 2023, our income was £600,000 on the nail. So far this year, in 2024, we have raised just over £481,000 and are on course, I hope, to meet last year's total. We manage our money carefully and retain sufficient cash reserves to ensure that we can fund all of the scholarships that we have committed to, but we rely on constant fundraising to cover our annual running costs and newly committed scholarships. We receive no public funding. The money that we do receive comes from individuals, companies, and charitable trusts, all of whom share our goals and our values. The mentoring of scholars is done for free thanks to the generosity of our mentors. How do we spend our money? Based on last year's full numbers, 9% of our income is spent on fundraising, 7% spent on general administration, 10% is spent on this evening's lecture and the prizes that we give, and the remainder, an impressive 74%, is spent on our scholarship and employability programs. We have recently completed our latest awards round, in which we committed to a record number of scholarships, awarding to 34 new scholars in the latest cohort. This will bring the total number of young ex-prisoners we are working with at the moment to 130, of which 110 are at university studying towards a degree, and 20 are in prison working towards an open university degree. The cost of living has affected our scholars and driven up the typical scholarship award to just under £6,000. To date, we have supported 550 young ex-prisoners. And we know that the combination of financial and mentoring support that we offer works. More than 80% of those we support go on to graduate or to get jobs. Just 4% end up returning to prison, a staggeringly low number when compared to the national average of more than 50%. We are currently able to award scholarships to around 1 in 7 of those who express an interest, and data suggests that there are many more involved in the criminal justice system whose lives could be transformed by a Longford Scholarship. We are a small charity which targets our efforts and our money very carefully. but our impact is far greater than our budget. We care deeply about what we do, and it makes a difference to the lives of thousands of people. If you value the work of the Longford Trust and would like to support us in any way, please do get in touch. Our scholarship scheme is almost 20 years old, and as a result, we see many examples of its enduring positive impact. To finish my section, I'd like to tell you about yet another example of this virtuous circle coming to life. Last month, we launched a new initiative, the Longford Ambassadors. Our first cohort of ambassadors is made up of 10 current and ex-Longford scholars based all over the country and pursuing many different degrees and careers. They will be supporting the Trust, whether by acting as mentors or spreading the word about our work in prisons, the probation service, and the wider community. And the first group of people they will spread the word to is you this evening. They are all here tonight and will be at the reception after the lecture. Please do come and speak with them and find out more about the Trust. Everyone involved in the Trust has a badge on, and the ambassadors all have a badge saying ambassadors, so that's pretty clear. And one of our ambassadors is a filmmaker. And during the recent ambassador training day that we held in Birmingham, he produced a short film about this new initiative. So, hot off the press, here it is.
What surprised me the most about going to university was the opportunities which are available from having a degree. One opportunity I got was an internship at a software development company, which I'm now currently working at.
Before I engaged in education, I had a mentality, I was thinking I was going to die by a hail of gunshots, and that was just normal. And it was just about how long am I going to survive for? And now I'm thinking about growing old and having my grandkids running around and passing away peacefully in my sleep.
I think the thing about the Longford Trust is you've got the community. So you've got all the other scholars, you've got the WhatsApp group, you meet them at the Longford lectures, you connect with them, you network, and you think, do you know what? I'm not alone, yeah? Although maybe sometimes when I'm at university, I might feel like a fish out of water and I might feel a bit like, you know, I don't belong here, yeah? I know that I've got a community of people who've had similar experiences and who are now going through the same things.
Art was my way of expressing myself rather than the written word, so I decided to follow education whilst in prison in the completion of an art degree.
Education has helped me look forward to having new possibilities, a brighter future. I've got a new career that I can look forward to, and that wasn't an option for me before.
I applied for a master's with the Longford Trust. They kindly funded me, and since then I've just been embedded in some of their outreach work. So I've been to Uganda, worked with the Ugandan prison service over there, having a look at their system and how our system compares.
So the impact that the Longford Trust has had on me is that it's helped contribute to me getting a degree, first and foremost. And secondly, it's given me something that I've not felt that I've had in a long time, and that's people that believe in me.
My mindset when I started speaking to the Longford Trust was really just that I needed the money to support my studies. And the money's been really useful. But what's actually been far more important is the support, the community, and the network that the Longford Trust has given me access to. They were able to put me in touch with a charity, which I've partnered with for my PhD research. They've helped me find journalism work and new contacts, and they've made a huge difference to me professionally.
Thank you, all our ambassadors, and as Tom said, they'll be in the reception room afterwards. Two very quick things now. The first is to say to anyone listening at National Prison Radio and hearing our scholars talk, what we do, just in case, just to spell it out, is we offer scholarships to people who want to go to university, and that includes you. That includes doing open university degrees with us. You will all, I hope, get a copy of Inside Time, the national newspaper for prisoners, at the beginning of December, and it will include a supplement about the Longford Trust with a form you can fill in and ask for more information and send back to us free post. You don't have to put a stamp on it. Please look at it, please read the stories, remember what you heard this evening, and come to us, because we want to help more of you. So please, please, please do that. All of you in the audience, if you know anyone who could benefit from a Longford scholarship, please, please pick up the material this evening and put them in touch with us. The second thing I wanted to say to you very quickly, I meant to say it earlier, obviously still not getting things right. We've been funding some research this year with the University of Chichester, whose Vice-Chancellor is here with us somewhere this evening, which is about encouraging prisoners at their neighbouring prison, HMP Ford, to go into university, just to do a sample course to find out whether university is for them. People who haven't grown up in a background where university is the usual thing, or no family experience, often think, oh, well, they won't want me there. And what the Bridging the Gap project is all about is showing people that they are wanted there, and that will open the doors of opportunity. They're a brilliant organisation. They're putting together a research project, and we hope to publish the research later this year or early next year to influence other universities, other academics, other prison governors to let this project go forward, and also perhaps government ministers as well. So that's a wonderful thing. They've got to stand in the hall over there. I'm just going to ask Becky Edwards, who leads it all, just to stand up so you can go and talk to her later on. Becky, thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you. Find the right page now. Okay. We're going to end this year, as we end every year, with our Pinter poem, which is sponsored by Frank Longford's oldest daughter, Antonia Fraser, who is wonderfully with us here in the front row this evening, in memory of her husband, Harold Pinter, the Nobel laureate. It is awarded to the best poem published by a serving prisoner in the past 12 months that is put in the pages of Inside Time, the national newspaper for prisoners. To read the poem this evening, I am delighted to invite the actress Jenny Agutter to join me here on stage. From the timeless classic The Railway Children to the evergreen Call the Midwife on Sunday evenings, Jenny's one of our most celebrated actors and has a keen interest in prison, working for the St Giles Trust and Liberty Choir in Wandsworth. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jenny Agutter to the stage.
This apparently goes up and down. Should I make it go down? There we go.
Down now. Is that the right spot?
I think that's about right. Okay. Welcome to the Scrubs Hotel by R. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Scrubs Hotel, where a day feels like forever. Bad news. We've double booked you. You need to share with Big Dave. He is normally quite calm. Just don't sneeze during snooker or breathe during countdown. And no sudden movements. Good news. No need to share the sink. He doesn't wash. Apologies, but hotel policy dictates that your wife must stay in one of our sister hotels. Unfortunately, all our balcony suites are taken. However, do not despair, as your room is equipped with the latest metal sheet, microscopic air-hole airflow technology, with not fully opening and not fully closing functionality as standard. We've taken the liberty of pre-chilling your room to -7. As requested, we can accommodate you in a passive smoking room. Take advantage of our health and fitness facilities during your stay. We will open the gym once a week for an hour. Your well-being is important to us. We've had posters printed saying so. I see you have opted for our all-inclusive package, a fine selection. Your meals will be chef's choice. Leave your worries and taste buds at the door. Allow me to help you with your luggage, and by help, I mean keep. You may be mistaken for waiters or maids if you keep those black and white clothes. We offer overpriced room service once a week. Order a week in advance. Spontaneous desires cannot be indulged. Also, it may not turn up. Would you like to book the Scrubs Safari? If you're lucky, you'll see the big six: crow, pigeon, gull, sparrow, rat, and the not-so-elusive silverfish. We've put you down for a compulsory wake-up call at 1, 3, and 6 a.m. Please don't be alarmed if you get a torch in the face at 4 a.m. We are just checking you'll still be here for breakfast. Once you are unpacked, feel free to enjoy many of the bars here. We pride ourselves on our variety. We have them everywhere. On the doors, on the windows, and in all common areas. We even put them in your room. Your room operates on keyless technology. You will be keyless. Do have a lovely stay, and we'll see you tomorrow for an hour. Don't forget to leave us a review.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Right, that's it. That's the end of the Longford lecture. I want to extend an invitation to you all now to join the Longford family, our trustees, my colleagues, our scholars, our mentors, our prize winners, in two places. One is the reception room through there, which is called the Hall Memorial Hall, where Liberty Kitchen, which is a social enterprise working with serving and ex-prisoners at HMP Pentonville, will be serving drinks and canapes. Wonderful. I think they were here last year if you enjoyed them. Go and sample those. And as I've said several times this evening, go into the Bishop Partridge Hall opposite and meet the different charities. Ungrip in particular, I'd love you to meet. And listen to what they're saying, Bridging the Gap, PRT, so many people, so many good things in there. Go and do that. As you're leaving the hall, can I encourage you to use the QR code, which is here behind me. Excellent, that was marvellous, that came just as I said it. Or the card machines being brandished at the door, or the buckets, we do it every way. And if you want to give some financial support to what we do, we'd be very, very grateful. So final thanks to everyone who's made this event possible. Our ushers, who are from Totteridge Academy, our school partners this year, and their teachers. And if you want to find out how our interaction worked with them, do look in the brochure, the programme you were given as you came in. They've written about the experience of learning more about prison reform. I'd like to thank the brilliant team here at Church House, led by Vadrana Danserel. She basically organises this lecture, and I take the credit. So thank you to them. We'd like to thank particularly our friends at National Prison Radio. And I'd like to thank my colleagues at the Longford Trust. It's not just me. I know I've been bouncing around getting it all wrong, but the people who come on and help me get it right later on. We are a team of 6 people. I'm just going to name them because I think you should know. Sarah Boxer, Vina Josh, Claire Lewis, Chris Walters, and Roxanne Foster. They asked me not to make them stand up, so just give them all a round of applause for me. And I'm just going to ask Hilary to say a few words of farewell, and then I will come back.
Sure. I'll try and keep it short. I know you're all looking forward to your drinks this evening. A final note from me. I'd like to thank Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe for sharing her incredible story with us this evening. I hope her powerful and personal lecture, full of gems and wisdom, truths, personal proposed prison reforms, and ultimately her resilience, will inspire and encourage us all to fight injustice in whatever forms we come across it. A further thank you to you, our wonderful guests, and an incredible thank you to you, our wonderful audience here at Church House. You've all been amazing. You've listened intently, and this evening wouldn't have been possible without you. Yeah, without you, definitely. Yeah, I meant that. And last but certainly not least, our NPR audience, listeners on National Prison Radio. Thank you for tuning in this evening. I hope your dream of freedom comes in the not too distant future as returning citizens into our society. But until then, be the best version of you. And I'll end with a quote from Nazanin from her very first interview after her release. And I quote, "The meaning of freedom is not going to be complete until such a time that all who are unjustly detained are released." Good night.